The man from Oversight. There are two kinds of people the ISV sends to observe a situation. The first kind helps. The second kind is Harlan Voss. ISV cache and mission log, Corridor 7 Transit, Day 38. The ISV command video call was scheduled for 0700. Maddox was at the console at 06:58 with coffee, a clean jacket, and the expression of a man who had decided how the conversation ended before it started. Ham behind him said, "You're going to get yelled at. I'm going to get strongly and formally communicated at. There's a difference. There really isn't." At 0700, the screen connected. Director Price. Deputy Director Sahin doing the pen-tapping thing he did when he was annoyed. And a third person Maddox didn't recognize, gray-suited, late 50s, the compact stillness of someone who had already decided the room was unsatisfactory. "Captain Maddox," Price said, "your last mission report includes an unauthorized detour, 2 contact sessions with an anti-Rassar resistance movement, a combat encounter with a pirate vessel, resolved without an incident report. A joint operation with an unidentified Lathium vessel involving physical tethering, resolved without an incident report. A landing on Solen, during which you infiltrated a covert facility, overpowered 3 individuals, extracted an alien prisoner, and departed under pursuit." She looked at him over her glasses, also without a formal incident report. "I've been meaning to file those," Maddox said. The pen tapping intensified. "You are on very thin ice, Captain. The program's position is that your actions represent a significant escalation. The consequences are not fully calculable from where we sit. With respect, they're not fully calculable from where I sit either. That's why I want the meeting with 3. Price looked at the gray-suited man. The gray-suited man looked at Maddox. "The meeting may proceed," Price said, "on 2 conditions. First, anything binding requires my approval. You are there to listen and report, not to negotiate." "Understood." He meant it approximately 60%. "Second, the program is sending an observer. He'll be aboard the Cashin within 24 hours. She gestured. "Captain Maddox, this is Senior Oversight Officer Harlan Voss." "Looking forward to it," Voss said. His voice had the quality of something engineered to convey authority while revealing nothing. He had still not blinked. "Great," Maddox said. "We'll make up a bunk." The channel closed. Ham waited 4 seconds. "He's going to be a nightmare, isn't he?" "Almost certainly." "I can lose his bunk assignment," Ham offered. "He could end up in the supply compartment, the one next to the coolant pipe. It hums." "Ham," Maddox said. "Just putting it on the table." Harlan Voss arrived the next morning at 09:15 with 2 equipment cases, a tablet he kept face down on every surface, and the expression of a man who had assessed the Cashin in 30 seconds and found it adequate but not impressive. Ham, who met him at the bay, reported via earpiece. "He asked me what my engineering qualification level was. I told him. He made a note on his tablet. He made a note about my engineering qualifications, Cap. Be professional." "I am being professional. Professionally, I think he's a ham." "I wasn't going to say anything bad." "You absolutely were." "Aye. Fair." Maddox met Voss in the corridor outside the briefing room and shook the hand of someone who had read the literature on handshakes and applied it without enjoying the process. "Captain Maddox, Harlan Voss, ISV Oversight. Good to have you aboard. Let me give you the tour." I reviewed the Cashin's layout on the flight. "Right, then let me introduce the crew." I reviewed their files. A pause. Okay. Would you like to meet them as people rather than files? A briefer pause. Yes, that would be appropriate. The most significant incident of the next 48 hours happened on the second evening. Six had been recovering steadily. The sedative was out of his system, which had made him more alert, and as Ham delicately put it, considerably more Lathian. He moved through the Cashin's corridors with the deliberate pleasure of someone relearning what walking more than 6 steps in one direction felt like. He and Ham had developed a rapport that Maddox found surprising and deeply logical. Ham talked constantly about engineering. Six listened with the focused attention of a mind that finds problems more interesting than solutions. Voss encountered him in the corridor outside the medical bay. Ham was present and described the exchange afterward as the most uncomfortable 30 seconds I've had in space, and I once held a plasma coupling together with my bare hands during a live discharge. Voss had stopped. Six had stopped. They had looked at each other. Voss said, "You are the Lathian prisoner." Six said, "I am Lathian. I am not a prisoner." The applicable classification is guessed, with the additional implication of someone here pending a more appropriate arrangement. You are here involuntarily. The resistance facility on Solen was involuntary. This vessel is a different calculation. You are a member of a potentially hostile alien power aboard an ISV. Your vessel's captain removed me from a facility where I had been prevented from accessing basic cognitive function. The applicable assessment of his conduct is not hostile. It follows that the applicable assessment of mine is also not. Voss stared at him. Six looked back with the flat, iridescent patience of a species that had been making other species uncomfortable with eye contact for 4,000 years. The tea in the galley, Six added, is adequate. The preparation method your engineer uses is superior to standard protocol, though he will not explain his modifications. I find this irritating. Then he walked off. Ham relaying it to Maddox. Voss stood there for a full 10 seconds before he moved. I counted. I've never seen a man so thoroughly handled by a conversation about tea. The meeting with Three took place aboard the Cashin's briefing room. Three's vessel, while theoretically capable of hosting external visitors, had an interior architecture that was, as Three transmitted in advance, not configured for multi-species occupancy at this time. Maddox suspected this meant the hull's adaptive intelligence had not been consulted about Harlan Voss being inside it, and nobody had wanted to find out what it would do. Three arrived with one, a different individual from Six, something Maddox had needed 15 confused minutes to get straight when he'd first heard the strand designations. The moment Three came through the door and registered Six standing against the far wall, the room did something that had nothing to do with sound or movement. It was more like a change in air pressure, the quality of two people who share a cognitive bond re-establishing it after a long absence. Six's posture shifted fractionally. Three stopped, for exactly 2 seconds, in a way that was not his usual computational pause. Maddox looked at Yara. Yara looked at Maddox. Nobody said anything, because some things didn't need words, and adding words would have been the wrong call. Then Three said something to Six in Lathic, 4 syllables, that the translation matrix rendered only approximately as, "You are recalculated." Six said 3 syllables back. The matrix didn't render them at all. They were both quiet for a moment. Then Three turned to Maddox. "Captain Maddox, thank you for the return of my strand member." He drank all our tea. "Consider it even." Six, from the wall without looking up. "Your tea preparation is substandard." Ham, from across the table. "It absolutely is not." The steeping duration was. The steeping duration was correct. "Gentlemen," Maddox said. Maddox looked at Voss, who sat at the near end of the table with his tablet face down and the expression of a man already writing his report. Officer Voss is here as an observer. He's listening, not deciding. 3 looked at Voss. You are here to assess whether Captain Maddox's conduct is appropriate. Among other things. 3 considered this. Then you and I share a function at this table. Cass in the corner pulsed briefly. The Carlo device rendered it. I said this. Voss looked at 3, then at Cass. Then at his tablet, which he did not turn face up. Right, Maddox said. Let's start with the moon. 3 presented the data with Lathium precision, geological models, extraction projections, the 41-year structural viability timeline. These are the Lathian's own models, Voss said. Yes. And the directive is aware. The directive produced them. And the directive's assessment is that extraction continues. The directive's assessment is that the structural outcome falls outside the current planning horizon. By how much? Maddox asked. The horizon extends 80 years. The moon's viability falls at year 41. 9 years outside your own planning horizon, Maddox said, and you're still doing it. 3 said nothing. You told me yourself. The permanent loss of a species' territorial foundation is a Vartha-null-adjacent outcome. The directive's model doesn't account for that classification, which means the model is wrong. Silence, 6 seconds long for a Lathian. It is, 3 said, an incomplete model. Yes, it is. Another silence, longer. A revised model, 3 said, would require directive-level recalculation. The current directive was formed to address the spatial anomaly in Corridor 9. It has not yet dissolved. Maddox sat up. The directive that formed around the Knot Nebula, it's still active. It has not found a resolution. A directive that cannot resolve does not dissolve. It continues. It is unusual. How unusual? In 4,000 years of recorded Lathian governance, a directive has continued past 30 days on 2 occasions. We are at day 26. Ham very quietly, Jesus. If the directive is still active, Maddox said slowly, could it receive a revision request on the moon? A challenge citing Vartha-null-adjacent outcomes cannot be procedurally dismissed without full reconsideration. Who can submit it? Any Lathian with standing in the relevant weave. Do you have standing? 3 looked at him. You know what I'm asking. Yes, I have standing. Voss said from the end of the table, Captain Maddox, I need to formally note that what is being discussed is a direct intervention in the internal governance of the Lathian construct. That is well beyond. Officer Voss, 3 said. Voss stopped. 3 looked at him with the full weight of 4,000 years of Lathian administrative practice and a node running at full capacity. The intervention is being proposed by a Lathian in a Lathian governance process on the basis of Lathian foundational law. Captain Maddox is providing data. The applicable framing is not ISV program interference. The applicable framing is an incomplete model being corrected by its own internal framework. Voss looked at 3 for a moment, then at his tablet. He didn't make a note. The second half of the meeting was the sever. 6 had been quiet through the moon discussion. When the conversation turned, he moved to the table and sat down for the first time, which was its own statement. Walk us through what happened, Maddox said. The sever was on extraction survey, outer corridor 9. We registered the attacker at 37 seconds proximity, insufficient for tactical response. The attacker used the distributed wave discharge. He paused. The first strike compromised hull integrity. The node attempted to redistribute insufficient material at that range. The second strike reached the node housing. The room was very quiet. The node, Maddox started. 7 mines, 6's voice was completely flat. The housing was breached. I was in the secondary survey station, forward section. I lost consciousness. When I recovered awareness, I was no longer on the Sever. You were in the Resistance facility. Yes. Do you know how you got from the Sever to an underground facility on Solen? No, the interval is unaccounted for. This is unacceptable. Which was clearly not the right Lathian word, but the closest available one. The Resistance had a vessel in the area, Sable said quietly. If they were tracking Lathian movements, they may have known the Sever was there. They moved in, Ham said, grabbed the only survivor, brought him back. To interrogate, Maddox said. Six said, they asked about the relay network, the directive's awareness of their activities, whether the humans, he paused. They asked about the humans multiple times. Maddox looked at three. Three looked at Maddox. They were trying to work out whether we were a threat or an asset. Voss spoke from the end of the table, and for the first time, the administrative distance dropped from his voice. The Unary Initiative, the pirate data, you said it included coordinates. Corrupted, Maddox said, partial. But coordinates. Voss looked at three. The Unary are described in our intelligence files as former Lathian assets. Could they have built the weapon that destroyed the Sever? Three was quiet. No, the distributed wave discharge is not Lathian technology. It is not derived from Lathian technology. Whatever they have, it is not something they built from our infrastructure. They found something, Maddox said. Or something found them, Three said. The room was quiet with the specific quality of a room in which everyone has just arrived at the same thought from different directions. Voss said, after a moment, Captain, I want to revise a statement I made earlier. Everyone looked at him. My initial assessment of your conduct was that it represented an uncontrolled escalation. Having sat in this meeting, I am revising that to an understandable escalation, given available information. He looked at Maddox, with most of the administrative distance gone. The coordinates from the REM Maw, I want them decrypted, all of them. Ham's been on it since Solen, Maddox said. Voss looked at Ham. 60% recoverable so far, Ham said. The rest is corrupted beyond standard method. I've been using some non-standard approaches. Unauthorized modifications, Voss said. Aye, the ones that keep us from being dead. A pause. Keep working on it, Voss said. Ham blinked, right then. And Mr. Calloway. Aye. I noticed Six's preference for your tea. I'd like to try a cup. Ham stared at him. Aye, I'll put the kettle on. The meeting ended 2 hours later, with nothing formally decided, and everything substantially changed. Three paused at the briefing room door. I will submit the revision request, he said. I will also consider the communication question. That's all I'm asking for. Three left. Six stayed against the wall a moment longer, watching Maddox with the flat, iridescent attention Maddox had gotten used to without ever getting comfortable with. You went back for me, Six said. You didn't know who I was. I knew you were someone who shouldn't be in that cell. Six was quiet a moment. In Lathic, there is no word for what you did. The closest term is Keth Voran. It means an action taken to restore a viable configuration. It implies the actor recognized an incomplete model and corrected it. I'll take it. It is not a compliment in the conventional sense. It is a classification. I know, that's why I'll take it. Six left. Ham watched him go. Did a Lathian just call you good people in the most complicated way possible? That's about right. I'm going to make tea. Make it for everyone. From the doorway, Voss appeared. He looked at the empty chairs, at the geological model still on the display. For the record, my report to Director Price will note that the operational situation in this corridor is significantly more complex than the program's current assessment accounts for. Is that good or bad for me? It's accurate, which is what my reports are supposed to be. He walked toward the galley. From down the corridor, faintly, the words steeping duration, then a short silence, then the words I see your point. Yara appeared at Maddox's shoulder. Orders, Captain. 3 is going to submit a revision request to an active directive. The most powerful governance structure in this galaxy is currently running on a problem it can't solve, and someone I trust is about to drop another one in its lap. And Voss. Maddox listened to the sound of Ham and Voss in the galley. Voss, he said, is going to be fine. Personal log, Captain R. Maddox, ISV Cashin. Harlan Voss is not the nightmare Ham predicted. He's something more complicated, a man whose function is to protect the program from decisions it doesn't understand. Which means he's been, until about 3 hours ago, trying to protect the program from me. He's reassessing, I'll take it. 3 is going to challenge an active directive, one that has run past 30 days for the 3rd time in 4,000 years. The most powerful governance structure I've encountered in this galaxy is running on a problem it can't solve. He's about to give it another one. 6 confirmed it. The resistance pulled him from the Sever's wreckage. They had a vessel in Corridor 9. They were watching the attacker, and they didn't tell us. That's a question for a Shavrel. The unary coordinates are 60% recovered. Ham is still working. Whatever is at the end of those coordinates, it came with weapons technology that isn't derived from anything we know. Something that, if the timeline is right, was operating in Corridor 9 before the Knot Nebula formed. I don't know what it is yet, but we're getting close. Maddox.